Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the very first Ask Dr. Renee show. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our first guest is, well, I'm your host, Dr. Renee, in case you didn't know, and I will be bringing you motivation and inspiration to live a bigger dream. So that all of my guests, their stories inspired me, and I know they will in turn inspire you. Our first guest is Elvira Guzman. Elvira is a Southern California native who owns what was known as one of the fastest growing PR and branding companies in Burbank and Hollywood. She was recognized by Sister to Sister magazine and Urban Influence magazine after grossing over $300,000 in the first year. Prior to her independent success, she worked under comedian, actor, radio host, and author Steve Harvey for 9 years. Within these years, she had several titles including executive producer, segment producer, stage manager, stage producer, production manager, event coordinator, chief web developer, assistant producer, and departed while holding the titles of PR and branding director for Steve Harvey, the Steve Harvey Radio Network, and the Steve Harvey Suit Collection. She attained these titles while working on projects through Steve Harvey's production company, New Op Incorporated, that had contracts with major networks including BET, MTV, UPN, and WB. Not only was she featured in Latino Magazine's September issue and is considered one of the future 15 Latino entrepreneurs, she also became the first Mexican American to be featured in a reality show on BET for her client show, Being Terry Kennedy. She has resided in New York, Atlanta, and eventually went back to Hollywood, California to open LVG PR. She has represented 30 celebrities, participated in 20 award shows, landed 10 major deals, and produced 10 television and radio shows. Please help me welcome Elvira Guzman.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And congratulations on your show.
Thank you so much. So, Elvira, of course, I already know the story, but I would love for you to share with the viewers today, how did you, just start at the beginning and what, I don't want to give it away, but tell people how you got started and how you met Steve Harvey and, how that transcribed.
Sure. I met Steve Harvey when I won in-studio audience tickets for his radio show at 100.3 The Beat. And this was before he was syndicated. During that time, he was just being broadcast in LA and in Texas. And I honestly didn't really know too much about who he was. I didn't know too much about the King of Comedy or nothing like that. What I was really drawn to was his morning inspiration, the first 10 minutes of the show, because I was going through a really hard time in my life. So that morning when he said, we're going to be doing in-studio audience members, fax in, I immediately faxed in and I won tickets. And so that was the first time that I had ever been in a TV or radio setting. And so I absolutely fell in love because it looked like everybody seemed like they're having a good time at work. And so I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do in my life. And so when they told audience members to go to the right, I went to the left and I started asking every single person in that radio station, how do I get a job here? And they were laughing at me because I was literally wearing a pink velour suit, and it was a skirt velour suit, and it was Roxy. And I had Etnies on. Yeah, it was bad. And they're like, how old are you? Because I've always looked young. And I was like, I'm 18, but I go to college. I'm a straight A student. I have a car. Like, I have a job. Like, I'm responsible. And they were like, well, you could get an internship. And back then I had no idea what an internship was. And so I asked. I was like, well, what is that? And they said, well, that's when you work for free. And if we like you after 3 months, we'll give you a position. And so I said, okay, that's fine, but I want to work around Steve Harvey. Like, I don't just want to work for free because I don't really care about anything else. And so he was like, fine, I'll put you with Keisha Monk. And so I worked with Keisha Monk, which was from 10 to 2 p.m., and Steve ended at 10. And so I would come into the radio station 2 hours early so I could sort the mail for Steve and his team, so I could get them breakfast, get them coffee. But I had never had the guts enough to go to Steve Harvey and say, hey, your morning inspiration changed my life. You made me believe in God again. You made me want to live again. I never told him that. It was just enough for me to be around. And because his team was so intimidating that I don't even think at that time I would have been able to muster up the courage to go up to him. I probably would have been shaking. So
wait, let me stop you for a moment. Can you please share with everyone what was going on in your life prior to that?
Yeah, during that time, my parents were incarcerated. So I did have my brothers and sisters, but it's never the same when you don't have your parents. So it was really hard for me. And I was trying to commit suicide. And the last time was the morning when I heard his morning inspiration. And that moment on, thank God I've never attempted suicide again because I knew that there was something more for me in this life.
That's wonderful, and I think that's really important for people to understand how you, even though your parents were incarcerated, you still motivated yourself to go to school and to, of course, achieve straight A's, which even people with two-parent homes like myself couldn't do that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, before my parents were incarcerated, I was a straight A student, so it was nothing new for me. And my parents are amazing. They taught me values, morals, and they always told me that education was my only priority, and it was the only reason that I was here. Because unfortunately, they weren't fortunate enough to have an education, so they enforced that with all of us children. So when they left, I didn't skip a beat. I just knew that I had to continue on that path of success, and I did. Thank God.
great. And so you did the internship with Steve Harvey, and how did you develop that into a job?
Well, it was my last day of my internship, and I was really sad because I already had lost my job because of my internship. They had told me it was either the internship or the job, and at that time, I felt like the internship was feeding my soul, and that felt better to me than getting a paycheck. And so I let go of my paying job, and I went and I continued with my internship. So the last day of my internship, I had typed out a letter for Steve, and I gave it to him. I didn't put my contact information. I didn't ask for a job. I didn't ask for anything. I just wanted to let him know how he had impacted me and that I had been transformed from that moment on. Well, I was walking down the hall, I was saying my goodbyes, and then I hear him yell out my name. And it was the first time anyone has ever called me Elvie, because I just heard everyone's always called me Elvira or Elvira or El. And so I heard Elvie, and I was like, I think he's calling my name. And so I was like, oh my gosh, he's never said my name before. Maybe he doesn't know how to pronounce it, or I don't know what. But so anyways, I walked back, and I thought that I was in trouble because my parents were still incarcerated. And I don't know, there was just like this fear inside of me. But he put his arm around me, and immediately I felt like a father type of feel. And he was like, honey, how much are you making at your current job? And I was like, I just got fired, but, I was making $300. And I think he meant $300 every week, but I was making $300 every other week. But he told me that he was going to double my salary and pay me $600 a week. And at that time, it was, I wanted to yell. I was so excited because imagine getting $600 every single 5 days, every Friday, when I'm used to not even get, out of the 300, they still took out taxes, this and that, and Steve Harvey just straight up gave you the 600. And so I was rich. I was like, oh my God, I went and I got a brand new car. I was shopping, like it was nuts. And from that moment on, I was like, I cannot lose this job. So I never asked for a day off. I was never late. Whatever responsibilities they would give to me, they would give me 2 weeks. I would give it to them in 5 days because I know that they need it ASAP, and I want to make them look good to their partners. And because of that, they kept giving me after project because they saw that I was the quickest turnaround time. And so that's how I was able to not only get a job, but last for 9 years. In the 9 years that I worked with Steve Harvey and Rashawn McDonald, because they're partners and they both deserve equal credit, I've seen so many people come and go. And it's not because of, anything with Steve Harvey and Rashawn. It's just about standards. If there's people that are willing to give 200% and then you have people that are coming in maybe giving 70 because they have their own agenda, you could feel that immediately and then they leave. So I was very fortunate that back then I didn't have an agenda but to keep a job. And in fact, Steve Harvey thought that I was at his company for too long because he knew how smart I was, and he would ask me every single day. He was like, Elvira, you've had every position here. What do you want to do? And I was like, no, I don't want to do nothing. I'm happy like being underneath you, because when it was, I didn't want to have my own empire. I didn't want that because I used to help run his, and I saw that not only do you need assistants, but you need financial advisors, you need managers, you need, tons of stuff that I just wasn't ready. And I wasn't ready emotionally either to deal with everything that had gone on in my life. So it was easier to be up under somebody else, helping them with their dream, than to really ask myself the important questions of, Elvira, What is your purpose? Why did God put you here? Now, you know, all of those, I wasn't ready for that. So he was a person who was actually like pushing me like, okay, I need to help you start your business because I don't know what else to give you. And I was already making more money than most of my counterparts. So, so luckily at the age of 23, I started my own company. Not most people could say that. Most people, their companies fail within the first 3 years. My company has lasted for over 9 years, and a lot of that has to go back to the mentorship of Steve Harvey and Rashawn McDonald.
That is so awesome and amazing. My next question is, so you had this wonderful experience, and you did, I mean, you did have every position known to man. In that time, you worked with BET, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so you had that experience, and then, of course, anyone that knows Steve Harvey now knows that he has his hands in everything, and so you can just imagine the leadership and mentorship that was for Elvira. Can you just real quickly throw in a few pointers to somebody that's watching, maybe, because I know my friend is, she teaches PR at Wayne State University, and I told her to tell her students. So could you give them maybe just a few little pointers that would help them?
Yes, everything is about social media. Now, I guess the number one tip is to stay current. When I first started in publicity 9 years ago, the number one thing that we needed to get clients in was magazine, because that's where producers and editors go to get content for themselves and say, oh, this was a great feature. I want them for my TV show. I want them for my radio show. I want them for my magazine or my online site. Now, online is all it's about, because if you pick up a magazine, it's very, very thin. They have figured out now that more people are going to Boss Up or Media Takeout or TMZ. So I would say number one is to always stay current and not to be stuck in your ways. I know some publicists now that are still talking about press kits. They're still talking about 8-page press releases. That's archaic. That's dinosaur. We're not there anymore. Unfortunately, the attention span is like this. And if we don't give something a paragraph and let you know everything about it, they're going to say, oh no, this email is too long. I'm not even going to read it. Unfortunately, that's where we're at now, because we're getting, let's just say now we're getting 100 emails. Before, not that many people were email savvy, and they didn't have a way to get in contact with us. So now, before it was maybe 10 calls or 10 emails. Now it's about 100. So now you need to get your point across quicker. So I would say that's a great tool. Also is to continue to network. You're never too old to network. You need to get out there, especially because the companies are always firing the OGs, I call them, because they've tapped out at their, they're making a lot of money. And so what they like to do is to, fire them, hire the assistants that are making twice as, less, and then put them in the positions because they know how to run it. So how are you going to get those contacts? You have to go out, network, and befriend those people. Maybe they're 5, 10 years younger than you, so what? You still have to make sure that they know who you are. So I would say those two things would be the most important right now.
Excellent, excellent tips. And most people that know me know networking is the key. And I'll tell you quickly the story of how I met Elvira. I heard her name on Steve Harvey. Once I moved to Chicago, I started listening to Steve Harvey's show on the radio in the mornings, and I heard that inspiration too. Loved that morning inspiration. But he would mention her name quite a bit, and I'm like, I just take on. I don't know. Information just comes to me, and I keep it. And so I knew her name. And so when Twitter came about, slowly but surely, I was adding people, and somehow I came across her and was like, oh, let me add her. And so I started following her on Twitter, and one of my other friends here knew her, and I was like, you know her? Oh, my God. And so I was like, you got to make sure I meet her. And she came one time, of course, with a client to go to to go to Oprah, which I'm sure was Steve Harvey, to go to the Oprah Winfrey show. And I was like, she's in town. But she was too busy, so I didn't get to meet her. But I was like, okay, well, eventually. So then I go to California, and I was staying so far, there was no way we could connect, so we didn't connect. So we finally met in January of this year, but between them, we had emailed, we had texted, we were Facebook friends, and I just was so inspired. And then she'll tell you more about her book later, but I had read her book and was just floored because I had no idea. And so I was just so inspired and just amazed that somebody so young could have accomplished so much. And so I was so excited to finally meet her, and we just we're thick as thieves now, and I went to California a couple months ago. We hung out, and so, you know, network is very important. My thing is, I love to help people, but I also will not be used, and Elvira's the same way. So we don't mind helping others. We just don't want to be used and abused. So just make sure that you can, you know, add value to us when you try to network with us. And so, like I said, we will open later for question and answers, so you can ask questions if you have any for either one of us. So, how was it breaking? Like, I mean, when you finally said, Steve, I'm leaving, what did he say?
He said, you can't leave. I'm still going to be your client. So I relocated back to LA, and so of course he was my #1 client, and I would still work with him. And he asked me to actually move to Atlanta to help him he wanted to write a book. I didn't know what it was about. He wanted me to be the point person for the publishing company, and so I told him no. I was like, I have a boyfriend, I have a condo, I have tons of employees. Like, I can't do this. Like, I'm doing really well for myself. And then he gave me an offer that I couldn't resist. And so the next thing I know, I have all of my furniture in my car being shipped to Atlanta. And I lived there. And I lived there for, I would say, 3 years. And in fact, another time I tried to move back from Atlanta back to LA, and Steve called me, and I was in Mexico. And he's like, did you try and leave again? And I was like, yes, I need to go back to LA. I miss my family. I miss the weather. You know, I'm used to, like, you know, socializing. And in Atlanta, it was just like Steve Harvey, family, and that was it. And, you know, I know, because I'm so used to, like, and I guess I kind of took it for granted because, you know, Steve Harvey's name was the biggest in Atlanta. So when I would go to events, everybody wanted to know me, and I was like, I want to know somebody else. Like, I need to know the Oprahs, the Tyler Perrys, you know, and that wasn't possible during that time. And so I was like, I need to go back to LA because this isn't good for my business. I need to continue to grow, and I can't help all of these people that think that I'm the person to, you know, get to. And so the last time I finally moved back to LA was because I was able to help Steve Harvey get on Oprah and a record 4 times in 1 month. I already had got him on Ellen and everything else, and I was like, okay, Steve, like, and now, you know, now I have to go do my company and grow and expand. And he definitely understood that, and he was like, okay, he gave me his blessings. I did his final hoodie awards because I used to get all of the presenters, all of the performers, do all of the red carpet. And so I'm not the type of person that's going to say, okay, I'm out and I'm done. Absolutely not. I'm the type of person that's going to say, okay, I need to go to grow, but I'm going to be here to help you through the transition. And so I finished up the last, I believe it was the 8th hoodie award, and then that was it. And because I already had things lined up, as soon as I got to LA, the camera started rolling for BET's Being Terry Kennedy. So I honestly didn't have the time. I couldn't give, you know, what I used to give, and it wasn't fair. So that's how that transition went.
And so, I mean, I know you have a fabulous website, lvgpr.com, and, you know, it has your clients on and stuff. But prior to that, because even actually now I don't even have a website for our company, but prior to that, how did people, besides Steve saying your name every 5 minutes, how did people find you, and, you know, how did you get your clientele to start your business?
Well, because I was the talent booker for the morning show, and I was the talent booker for every other show he did for UPN, BET, the Hoodie Awards, Celebration of Gospel, the celebrities already knew me. And so the moment that it was, you know, it was almost like Steve said it was okay for me to represent other people. They were like, oh my God, like, I want you, and I didn't know what to do. That's why my company did so well the first year. I thought that it was going to be like other companies where you have to struggle to get 2 clients and 3 clients and 4 clients. That wasn't the case with me. Almost immediately, I had Musiq Soulchild, Cupid, Roy Jones Jr., tons of others, and I had to literally hire my friends and train them and to do publicity, because I couldn't split myself up and send this person to the Essence and that person to this event. And so I was very, very fortunate that I was a talent booker before this.
That's awesome. And now your company, how many employees do you have?
We just have 2 employees, and we have about 4 girls that we're training right now, and they're all from USC.
Okay, great. And USC is her alma mater, just in case
Yes.
you didn't know. So who takes a vacation and writes an entire book? Elvira does. And then I see you're about to write a second one, which is amazing. But please tell everyone about your blueprint.
Thank you. Well, I was struggling with the previous book that I was editing because I help celebrities and entrepreneurs write books, and I was struggling with the book that I just couldn't finish editing, and it seemed almost like every time I had designated an evening or a morning or a weekend to edit this book, I would get phone calls that was an emergency. I would get an event or another client that would say, hey, I need you to do this, and I was just not able to do it. So I said, you know what, let me book a trip to the Dominican Republic by myself, and I have to finish it by the time I get back. So I went to the Dominican Republic, and I started the editing process for 2 days. It was going okay because I didn't have cell reception, so there's absolutely no way for me to, have distractions, and I didn't take anybody with me, so I was able to do that. However, the third day when I went out there with my laptop, God had a different plan, and God was like, start with a blank piece of paper. And I was like, no, like, that's not what you mean, right? And, God was like, yes, I mean, start with a blank piece of paper. And so finally, because I was brought up very spiritual, I know the voice of God, I obeyed. And so I did. I started with a blank piece of paper, and the first day I wrote I wrote the first half of the book, and the second day I wrote the second half. But the first day I wrote, I would say, about 70 pages of it. So about 20 more pages. I was just like in the zone. I mean, how many people could say that in one sitting they write 70 pages of content? I don't know
Not many. No.
Yeah, and it was just flowing through me. And one thing about this book, which I have to explain, is that there's no editing in this book because I felt that it was streamed through me. And so what I usually do for others, where I go in there and I fluff it up, I make it a good 300 pages so that way you can hike up the prices, because that's what everybody wants, is about the dollar, it's about the look, it's about the presentation. My message was, no, you give it as is because it has to be true. And so that's why my book is simply 114 pages. You could read it in 2.5 hours, and that was my complete intent. So yes, I wrote it in 2 days. I came back with the mission of getting it out. And so eventually my book is going to be a movie. Eventually my book is going to be a TV show series, and I'm already doing all of the philanthropy work behind the scenes. So I go to juvenile halls and I speak, I hand out the books. I go to at-risk high schools, I hand out the books. So it's all about getting the awareness out there that your purpose is the most important thing in our lives.
Yes, that is, and it's so important to figure out what your purpose is in life. I think once you figure out your purpose, it's like the light turns on, possibly.
Absolutely. And you can see clearly. It's like, how can you write an essay in the dark? Turn on the light and you're going to see things so clearly. It's going to be simple.
And that's why it's really important, and I try to instill in all the young people in my life, high schoolers, even younger than that, to do internships. Try to follow somebody in the field that you think you're interested in, solely because that'll expose you even just a little bit to that field, and you can say, I love this, or I don't like it, and you move on to something else. College is not cheap, as everyone knows, and it's getting more expensive by the day. And it's not good to go through 4 or 5 years of college and discover that you really did not want to do that.
Yeah,
that's a waste of money. And and if it's loans, it's that's a whole lot of money to be in debt to realize that this is just not what I wanted to do. So you really need to try and figure things out. Try new things and explore. And I think Elvira's book, books like Purpose Driven Life, these are books that after you read them, you might be able to say, hey, I know what I want to do just from reading the book. If you do the exercises in these books, I think it'll help you to figure out, exactly what it is, what's your mission, and what is your purpose in life. I think that God puts a purpose on everybody's life. There's a reason for all of us to be here, and it's just upon you finding that reason. It is so important, I think, for everyone to be as happy as possible. And I know that sounds really cliche and funny, but I am so serious. We just found out that one of the creators of some of the hair products that I used to use, she committed suicide a couple weeks ago. And I mean, money does not buy happiness, and I've always said that. But it is so important to please love what you do and live a happy life, because you just never know. And and please know that even if you are depressed, that is never the exit. You should always try to get help. But So Elvira, please tell them about the philanthropic things that you do, because I think they are so amazing, and I can't wait till I get there one day and can do the same.
Thank you so much. Well, one of the things that I'm very proud about is that I go and I speak in juvenile halls. One thing that I didn't know this, so I know that many others don't know it as well, is that 85% of the girls that are in juvenile hall are in there for human trafficking. And so these girls that are in there are broken. A lot of and I asked the correctional officers, and I was like, well, where are their parents? Like, why aren't they here? Why aren't they helping? Or, why don't they care? And they told me that the majority of their parents are the people that put them into that life, that maybe their mother is also working or their dad is the pimp. And so when I go and I speak in these juvenile halls, it's really my life's work, because they're the hardest crowd ever, because they don't want to hear anything. They're so hurt. And when I walk in there, they're all talking to each other. They don't want to hear anything. They have tattoos on their neck. You're just like, oh my gosh, you're so young. And you look already so hard, so tired, and so angry. But as soon as I tell them my story and what I went through, they listen, because they see that, hey, if she went through something similar that I went through, and she made it, and she could look like that, which is success, then I could do it as well. And so that's why I think it's so important for, everyone to go back in. I was never in juvenile hall, but I still go back in there because I could relate to many of their stories. I know that I can't reach many of the boys, so what I do is I ask my clients who have similar stories. Maybe they lost a mother early on, or maybe they never knew their father, yet they still made it to the top of their company, and they have mentors to thank, or they have internships to thank, and they could teach that to the boys. So I also do that. Other things that I do is I go to high schools, at-risk high schools, where, this is the final school that these kids have a chance to get their education. So that touches my heart, because I feel like these girls think that nobody cares for them. And once I let them know that I felt the same way, because I felt like I had nobody. And when I look in the audience and I see their eyes and I see them tearing up, it's because they know that they're not the only one with that story. And in knowing that, it liberates them, because they know, hey, God is not picking on me. This is just something that's here to make me stronger. So that's another thing that I do that really touches my heart. In addition to that, I have mentees. Like, for instance, when I go and I speak at USCs, these kids are a little more privileged, you would think. Absolutely not. When I spoke at USC, one of the girls walked up to me, and she told me that, my story relates with hers, because her dad is currently in jail, and after the jail sentence, he's going to be deported because he doesn't have papers. And she's sitting there crying, saying, Ms. Guzman, how can I worry about this test or this final when I'm so sick inside about not ever seeing my dad again? Like, if he's going to get killed, he doesn't have family in Mexico. We've lived here all of our lives. Like, what is he going to do? And so I relate to that, because I also used to be ready to take tests and have that thought in the back of my mind of, oh, I'm going to visit my dad on Saturday. I hope he lives until then so I could see him. I would have that. And so how can a child be forced to think about, oh, let me get straight A's or this or that, when they have this? And so because I feel that I've developed the coping skills and was able to succeed, that's why I go back. Because in touching that little girl's hand, she's probably 19 or 18, whatever, just having that human touch, or letting her know that, hey, I'm here for you, that makes me feel great. And also, like the Latino College Expo that I just did, that goes to help educate Latinos. Only 68% of Latinos graduate high school. Out of the 54 million that are here, only 4 million of us have bachelor's degrees. Only 1.3 million have advanced degrees. That's an issue. If we're the largest minority and less than 5% of our people have bachelor's degrees, that's an issue in the future. And so I try to team up with organizations where I could facilitate information to the kids, information to the parents, because one of the major reasons why is because our parents didn't go to school here. Their high school is 5 years, ours is 4. They don't know what an SAT, ACT is. So what it is for me, it's about any place where I could be of service, where I feel now I know better, so now I could go back and teach, is where I'm at right now. So that's a little bit about the philanthropy work that I'm doing.
Don't forget to tell us about the dresses.
Oh yes, my dress line, and I actually have one here. And to tell you guys a little bit about it, I had teamed up with a company that their vision didn't align with mine. At the end of the day, I'm not in the dress industry to make money. I'm in the dress industry to help, and they didn't feel the same way as I did. And I would rather kill a deal and do it on my own with my own money than to partner with somebody whose true intent is not what I believe of God. And so my dress line, like I mentioned to you before, when the girls are released from the juvenile halls, they're given the same dress to put on that they wore to go in. And those girls have to work, and you know what that means, 20 to 30 times a day. So all of those memories of that dress, and the intent of juvenile hall is to rehabilitate a girl. So if you're going to rehabilitate her but then make her wear the same outfit that she wore when she came in, that's a different girl now. So I wanted to create a dress line where I could use that money to eventually have foundations and hopefully Elvie centers where if they don't have a place to transition out of juvenile hall, then they're able to come to my location, have a safe bed to sleep in. They're going to be able to do their homework, go to school. And so when somebody buys the entire collection of my dresses, which will be back up soon, one dress is going to be donated to a girl that's transitioning out of juvenile hall. And actually we have dresses that were just made and we're going to start promoting this week. Of our dresses, I believe we're going to be releasing 15 dresses, and it's going to be the dress and the book for $35 including shipping. So it's like a super special, but we just want to get the word out so that every time that somebody wears the dress, we're hoping that they'll social media, they'll promote the book in the meantime while we're getting all of the dress orders back in order, now that I'm going to be the investor. So this is one of the dresses. Yeah. So they're all business dresses that you could wear for, when you're going to a meeting or you're going for networking. And so, and then you'll see that's our logo. One of the important things that Steve Harvey and Rashawn McDonald instilled in me is that when you're going to meetings or when you're going to networking or when you're going anywhere to your office, you want to make sure that you exude where you're going, not where you're at. So let's just say, for instance, you make maybe $40,000. Dress and you want a job that's $500,000. Dress as if you are already at that $500,000 because that's how you're going to get those people to meet with you and talk to you. So my dress line is affordable, but the cuts are so that you can have those meetings. You can exude that class without having to spend $1,000 a dress, which a lot of women in entertainment do. I don't believe that that should be the case. You could spend $20 to $30 on a dress, spend the rest of that money and invest it in your future, invest it in stocks, or invest it in your books or in your personal ventures. So this is one of the ways that I'm also doing philanthropy, because you could look good and you could be doing something great. So thank you for reminding me of that.
No problem. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any questions over here yet. Does anyone have any questions? There should be a link there for you to click on, ask a question, and you can type in your questions. We have a little less than 30 minutes left. Okay, well, while they're doing that, so the dresses, did you say how much the whole line would be?
We're not, well, the entire collection is, yeah, the entire collection is going to be $145. The prices are not going to change.
Okay.
Yeah, so
okay.
$145, and then each dress is going to be $29.
Gotcha. And where would they be able to purchase these?
lvgdresses.com.
Great.
Yeah, so everything's ready. I literally have a meeting with my dress person so that way I can place the orders, and then I'm going to be putting everything online of what dresses we have in stock and that will be delivered within a week.
Okay, great. And then where can we get your book?
You can get my book on Amazon.com, and this is my book. It's called Your Blueprint.
Perfect.
And it's the best thing that I have ever done. You will love it. And hopefully you guys will refer it, give it out, tell your friends about it, post on social media. It's a movement. It's about finding your purpose. Like Dr. Renee said, once you find your purpose, it's like turning on the light in a dark room and everything starts to make sense. And you're just like, wow, this is what it feels like to have true joy. I think a lot of us make the mistake of whatever it is that we might lack at that particular time, whether it be like, oh, if I just had $1,000,000, if I just had a husband, if I just had a kid, if I just had my mom back from being dead, then I'll be happy. That's not true. If you find your purpose in life, that's when you're going to be happy, because then you're going to understand why your mother passed away. You're going to understand why your man left you. You're going to understand why you're having whatever financial situation, because you're going to have that awareness. So that's what true happiness comes from, is from knowing things happen to us for a good reason, not because God is trying to punish us. It's because God is trying to redirect us simply. So that's what the book teaches. And, you know, a few of the chapters that I think are extremely important are, for instance, one, divine order. This is one that I talk to all of my clients about. Some people, they take it personal when, let's say, a particular media outlet doesn't want to have them on. I try and tell my clients, don't get upset when you get a no. We're going to pitch 3, 4, 10 times if we have to, and we're going to get it right. It's just probably not the right time. When we have gone back with the pitches, and I have told my clients the same thing, they're like, oh, Elvira, you are so right, I get it, because before it wouldn't have been on sale, and I wouldn't have made any money if we would have got the interview then, and now, blah, 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 and I'm just like, I told, you know, and it wasn't even up to me, because the same pitch I sent before is the same one that I'm sending now, but it's just a matter of timing, which is never up to us. So that's one. And then another one that I believe is great is who shattered your heart. You know, like I briefly mentioned before, and I'll use myself personally. I was heartbroken for many years, and I thought that it was my ex-boyfriend who I was looking to repair my heart. Oh my gosh, you know, he left me when I was sick, and how can he do that? I gave him everything. And that wasn't it. I was actually heartbroken because of my parents, because they had originally left me, and I had never had the courage to tell them, you know, how I truly felt to be alone all those years, and how I felt because I missed them and I wanted their attention and their love. And because of that, I had been looking for it in all the wrong places. So it wasn't until I had that conversation that I was actually able to liberate myself and fill my heart back up and repair it. Because if your heart's shattered, you're going to, you know, no matter what anybody tells you, you're going to find an issue with it, because you're going to come from a broken place. So if anything, those are 2 chapters in my book that I think tremendously help out the reader, because you have an understanding of why things don't happen when you want them, and you have an understanding of if somebody leaves my life, if somebody fires me, if somebody, you know, acts a certain way towards me, it's not, don't take it personal. You're either being redirected or, you know, it's for your good. Always know that.
We did get a question. What daily rituals do you have to stay centered?
Well, the first thing that I do when I wake up is prayer / meditation. So we all know as prayer is when we talk to God, meditation is when God talks to us. So that is the first thing that I do when I wake up, because I have to have a sense of clarity, a sense of peace. I can't have the alarm clock go off and then I immediately turn on the TV, I immediately get my phone. I can't do that, because my nervous system would be bad. The first person I need to talk to is my boss, which is God. And so once I get my directions, then I proceed with my day. Another thing that I do throughout the day is to remain awake, or to remain centered, or to remain happy, as I take little pauses and breaks throughout the day to just be grateful. So if I'm going to eat food, I'm not going to eat food while I'm looking at my computer, looking at the TV, seeing if any clients or this or that. No. I'm going to stop and I'm going to say, God, thank you so much for this food. I appreciate it. May it nourish my body. And I'm going to appreciate every bite. It's not going to take me no more than 5 to 10 minutes, but that little time is Elvie time. I figured that I am an amazing person at taking care of everybody else. As women, most of us are, but we always forget to take care of us. And so before I could get on a phone call and be an amazing publicist or an amazing producer or whatever it is, I have to be amazing to me first, so that I'm not coming from a place of, oh my God, I'm tired, I'm hungry, or you know, I don't have zen. So throughout the day, I take those little moments to, you know, even in the car when I'm on my way to a meeting. Yes, most of the time I schedule phone calls because there's not a minute that I'm not doing something. But if there's, you know, a song that I love, I'm like, no, I'm gonna sing it. This is gonna be my me time, and I get my happy back. And so those are the small things that I do. And then of course I'm the type of person, because I run a business, It's hard for me. It used to be hard for me to sleep at night. But what helped me was that before I go to sleep, I do my to-do list for tomorrow, and I say, okay, what are some good things that I did today? Oh, I got this client that, yay, that's good. I got this client that, oh, that's amazing, and I did this. Yes, so before I go to sleep, I'm already giving myself feel-good endorphins that I'm a good person, that I'm great, and I already have tomorrow squared away. So when I go to my bed, I'm completely ready for the next day. So that's my routine.
And I do creative visualization every morning. So I try to find a blank space on the wall, the ceiling, and I never thought to do this with my eyes open until I went through a class with Lisa Nichols, but you look and you literally picture whatever part in your life you want to picture, 5 years from now, today, tomorrow, whatever. You picture it, and you know what you see, you believe, and you can achieve. And I called Elvie one day and told her I pictured her sitting on the set of my talk show, and I interviewed her. And, you know, we went out and, like, had drinks and dinner afterwards with our husbands or something. But I called her, and I know she thought I was loony. But, you know, literally I pictured that, and I was, like, sitting on the set. And I said, oh, my God, I can see it. It's going to happen. I just, you know, I got to keep working, and it's going to happen. And I meditate as well and just try to be silent and just still and for at least 10 to 15 minutes when I first wake up, and then, you know, get my day started. And hopefully, you know, nothing crazy will happen because of that. And then at the end of the day, I don't write them down, but I always think of my wins. So what was my win today? You know, I always try to find one win a day, and it could be something simple like finding a coupon for cereal, as long as it's something. Something for me to be excited about. It doesn't take much for me. We have another question. How do you find the perfect publicist for your brand?
That's a great question. I could give you a great example. I get several clients that come to me who are urban, and they've had non-urban publicists, and they don't know what to do with them, and they wonder why. And I'm just like, well, because they don't know your demographic, they don't know your producers, they don't know your editors. You need to, whatever market you're in, let's just say you are urban, but you want to get into a different type of genre. You still have to go with your core. You know, Steve Harvey wasn't able to get on NBC before he was on BET. So you still have to get your core demo. So I would say Google and research what publicist is the best for your demo. So for instance, if you're a basketball player, Google the best basketball player that's getting the most endorsements right now, and then see who that publicist is. So that we could, so that way you could contact them. So it's about really doing your research, and then also seeing, you know, what kind of clients they've represented and what they've achieved so far. That's very important.
Yes, I agree. We don't have any other questions right now. I couldn't help but notice, is that Shirley Strawberry behind you?
Oh, yeah, that's Shirley. Yeah, girl, you know what's so funny is that I didn't even know that she wrote my name in the acknowledgments, and so when I'm reading her book, I'm all, you know, like, oh my God, I'm so proud of her, this is great, and then I'm reading it, and then I see my name, and I get so excited, I literally, like, circle the whole thing, and I put, yay, and then I was like, why did I do that? Like, I'm going to frame this, like, I'm so retarded, but then I thought it was gracioso, so I was like, I'll just put it on the wall. But yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then Think Like a Man is above it?
Yes, yes, absolutely. That was the first one when I think I was 25 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and to believe it or not, that was actually the second book because I wrote my first one at 23 and I've never even published it. But it's called Dream Plus Plan Equals Success because I felt that a lot of people had dreams, but they had no plan. And so I was like, well, what are you going to do with this? Kind of like faith without works is dead. Like you can't just have a destination. You need to know how you're going to get there. And so I wrote that book, and eventually I actually want to release that to and publish it for the school systems because I think it could be very useful for 10th and 11th graders who are trying to figure out what they want to do with their life because that's when they start to get nervous about college. So I'm going to work on that.
That's groovy. What is the second book that you're talking about doing?
I have no idea.
Okay.
just like this book, I had no idea what it was going to be about or how it was going to be guided. So I absolutely have no idea. But I know that I do want to write it in churches and in museums. So when I go to Mexico, I'm going to do writing sessions in the cathedrals, in the most famous places where Hidalgo was, where, you know, the person that fought off and won the battle for Mexico. So I want to go where there's great energy, and I just want to see where God guides me and see what type of book I write.
Great. Okay, so our question is, what if you were a doctor? How do you find the perfect publicist for your brand? It would be the same way, right?
Yes, the same way. Like there's a few TV shows on right now that have doctors, so I would say probably reach out to them because they already have the relationship established. Or it just depends on your needs. If you're a doctor that just wants more clientele, maybe that's one publicist. If you're a doctor that wants to get a reality TV show, I would be the publicist. If you're a doctor, you know, it just depends on what you want.
Gotcha. So do you have a work-life balance? I think that a lot of women, particularly, struggle with that, and then also especially us being single women.
Yes, I didn't have that, and that's why I got sick. And now I absolutely do. I try my very best to work from 9, which is not true, probably 7:30 to about 7:30 usually, and that's good for me. You have to keep in mind, I used to work from 3:30 in the morning. I had to be at the radio station, and I wouldn't leave, you know, events until maybe 11. And so for me to work from 7:30 to 7:30 is really, really good. But when I stop, I stop. I don't check emails. I don't check text messages. I don't answer phone calls. I have to, because if not, the next day, I'm not going to be the happy and excited and, you know, giving off that positive energy that I need. And so I definitely do it. And also, like for instance, this past weekend is a rare occasion that I had to work on a Saturday for the expo, but typically I do not work Saturday or Sunday because I need to recharge my batteries. And so I have to have that balance because before it wasn't good for my health.
That's good and very important to realize that, you know, God whispers to you and then he yells at you and then he throws a brick at you. And so I think that maybe your health scare might have been that brick coming at you like, wait a minute, I need you to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's nothing worth my health anymore.
Besides Steve Harvey, who are your favorite clients and why? This is a question that just came in.
Well, I always say this, and it's my answer forever. Being a publicist is like being a mother. You can't pick favorites because one of them is going to get hurt. Right. So I enjoy them all equally. I love them, and everyone is a struggle. You know, one of them may have something that I have to get them through in order to succeed. Like one of my clients, when I take them into meetings, they start to have a speech impediment and they can't land a deal. And so that's one of the things that I'm dealing with. But guess what? I'm not going to give up and be like, oh, you, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say, you know what? By meeting 4 or 5, the jitters will be gone, and then we'll land a meeting then. Another client, I may have to deal with trust issues because they've never had a publicist before. And every step of the way, they're like asking me, and I'm just like, I'm not used to being micromanaged. And so I have to say, hey, you have to trust me. You know, if you knew what you were doing with your career, you would have been a lot farther. Like, right? That's why you're hiring me. Like, let me do my job. And so, like, every client is special to me because I feel that once I get them over that hurdle and I get them to, like, the other side, I feel like, okay, my job is done. I could go back and get more help. You know, so everyone I feel good about helping. And another thing, too, that I want people to understand as publicists is there's clients of mine that, you know, they may not be able to afford the retainer because they're not releasing a film, they're not releasing a book or whatever it is. But to never be the type of publicist that says, oh, well, I'm not, you know, so-and-so contacted me for them, I'm not going to tell them about it. Or I'm going to give this to another client. Or I'm going to do, you know, I believe that honesty has gotten me this far because I'm always very transparent. And I'll give them the interview. I'll be like, hey, BT hit me up for you. Here you go. So-and-so, here you go. And they always come back. And we have a relationship. And I remember when I was at the Hoodie Awards, it was so funny because at one point it was all of my past and current clients. It was George Wallace, Cupid, Nephew Tommy, Shirley Strawberry, Steve Harvey. And I looked down the carpet and I was like, this is all my clients. Like, and it was kind of like an aha moment because I think as women, especially as women, because I don't think many men have this issue, is we don't see ourselves the way that other people see us. And so on that carpet, I was still being opposed, like, oh, let me get out of the way. I don't want to be in pictures. Like, and they're like, no, we want you to be in here. Like, we've known you for like 12 years. You're the one who helped me get here. And I was like, oh, well, sure, like, great. You know, so to also acknowledge the work that you've done. And when you're in the industry for this long, they are your peers. They're like brothers and sisters. So, you know, how can I say that Tommy is my favorite over Shirley when she's like my aunt? You know, and Tommy's like my uncle or my big brother. Shirley's like my big sister. You know, Shirley's the one who taught me how to dress in Hollywood. Or, you know, so it's like the relationships are so long and amazing that I can't pick a favorite.
Now, do you, I know I have been very selective. Have you turned people down? You just,
oh, yes,
you didn't align with what they were doing maybe, or?
Yeah, I can't deal with attitudes. I can't deal with ego. I can't deal with, I could deal with a little no trust. I can't deal with a lot of no trust. I'm just not there yet. I'm not in a place where I feel like I should have to prove myself anymore. You know, I feel like I'm like, okay, like, let's get on this. Let me show you what I could do, and let's do it. So I'm not in that space anymore.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And I think because we both believe in God, it's difficult to work with some people in this industry because they don't believe. They think that everything has come to them because they did it themselves, and that's not true. So, not true that I believe. So.
Yeah, or if their brand, like for instance, I'm not going to represent anybody who's, excuse me, like in their pictures with a thong or this or that. Like, you know, I'm going to tell them, like, if you want me to represent you, you have to correct your image. Prior to my awakening, it didn't matter. You want me to represent you, you have money, let's do it because I know people. Like, it's no problem for me. But ever since God awakened me, ever since I wrote the book, I only represent people that I know are going to do something positive for our community. Either your book is going to help somebody, either your comedy is going to relieve somebody's pain from that evening, either this song is going to make them get up and dance, or, you know, it has to be something positive. You know, I'm no longer in that business, and I'm very fortunate that, you know, we love business, but we don't need business in that way.
That is a blessing. Well, we have just 7 minutes to go, so please let everyone know how they can reach you, and I will definitely make sure that I put them in the box below.
Thank you. Well, you can reach me on my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Facebook is just Elvira Guzman. The rest is Elvira Guzman LA. Email me any questions that you guys may have. I'd be very happy to respond.
Thank you so much, and I greatly appreciate you being my very first guest and being such a good friend and guiding me through this crazy business of Hollywood. But and thank you everyone that watched, and those that are going to watch the recording, please feel free to still send us questions and we'll do our best to get them answered. And thank you, and hopefully you'll be hearing from me soon about the next episode of the Ask Dr. Renee Show. Good night.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
You're welcome.